Hi guys, Matt from Aquarium here, bringing you a short video on today's topic of salt. So, benefits in the aquarium or pond, and also things you should watch out for, its uses, why we can and perhaps shouldn't use it in some situations. Now, I've seen a lot of speculation on the interweb regarding the use of salt and what you can and can't use it for. Some people advocate using it constantly. Some say it's terrible, some say it's outdated and much better chemicals are available. And all in some parts are agreeable. The difficulty with fish is not every fish pond or aquarium is the same. The types of fish are different and it's not a suitable treatment for all fish. Throughout the video we're going to whistle stop through a number of points that I've picked up and things we could and couldn't use salt for, and hopefully it'll give you a broader knowledge of what's appropriate and how you should treat. And certainly throwing in that teaspoon of salt into the aquarium, is it really the right thing to do? So first of all, what type of salt? So for larger applications you can buy bulk bags of what we call PDD salt or pure dry salt. It is available very cheaply from your local aquarium store, pond shop, garden centre, or available through the internet, the likes of Amazon and eBay. It is plenty, very cheap. But what you need to take into account is the amount that you'll actually need. We will cover that briefly later in the video. What we shouldn't use are salts that are available from supermarkets that contain anti-caking agents and other chemicals. Okay, these can potentially be hazardous or indeed poisonous to the fish, so pick your salt carefully. Some cooking salts don't contain anti-caking agents and would be suitable for an aquarium application. So we can use salt in roughly three areas. Firstly would be for treatment of parasites such as Chilodenella, white spot, Costia, Trichodina and potentially flukes. Second would be for osmoregulatory stress. And thirdly would be for nitrite toxicosis. We'll cover them in more detail as we go through. So salt as a treatment against parasites. Chilodenella, Costia, white spot, Trichodina and to some extent flukes can all be treated with salt in the aquarium or pond. As a general tonic, 1.5% solution or 15 grams per litre is accepted as a general solution to administer to a pond or aquarium to treat those parasites. If the fish is displaying excess mucus or are clamped up and maybe have bloodshot fins, a salt bath, where it's administered via immersing the fish in the bowl of around 3% or 30 grams per litre is acceptable as an emergency sort of treatment. However, it's important to note with that, fish should certainly not be left unattended, and if it shows signs of distress, remove it immediately, and certainly prolonged exposure, no more than 30 minutes in extreme cases, to ensure there's no long-term damage to the fish. So 3% is typically sea strength water, so it will taste salty and be similar to that you will taste when you're out splashing around on the beach. So, osmoregulatory stress. Not a term that you'll come across commonly in the aquarium world. We add salt to aquariums when fish arrive from around the world and also to the ponds outside as well when we quarantine. The reason we do this is to ensure that the fish channels most of its energy on recovering from the long journey that it's had. By increasing the salt content to 0.9%, we take away the fish's need to osmoregulate because the water is 0.9% salt content, the internal content of the fish is 0.9%, so osmoregulation is not required. That's the theory anyway, and it certainly seems to support that in that the fish recover quickly if they've got any bumps or scrapes from transit, and it allows them to focus on feeding and recovering from the tired journey that they may have had. So now we come on to nitrite toxicosis. So hopefully we shouldn't find ourselves in this situation. We shouldn't be putting fish into a brand new system, we're putting too many fish in where a filter can't cope, or we just find ourselves in that situation. So in terms of treatment for nitrite toxicosis, 0.05% or half a gram per litre is all that's required to alleviate the nitrite poisoning situation. Okay, so what we ideally want to do is maintain that until the filter is cycled. Other ways we should definitely be doing that are completing water changes and reducing our stocking as required. So although it is tempting to overstock, it can lead to problems. And ideally we should be setting up aquariums and making sure they are cycled slowly, gradually, and we build up to where we want and we have our lovely collection of fish. So I've banded around some general figures around treating the various ailments and conditions and sort of preventing or allowing fish to recover from shipping. Now, these aren't hard and fast rules. What you need to consider is that it applies to some fish and not others. You need to do research. An example would be sturgeon, far less tolerable to a higher salt content than, say, a koi would be. And this is why I advise that you speak to somebody that's an expert in their field, such as us or other companies out there, who will be able to guide you on this. Self-treatment has become much easier with the onset of social media. However, the amount of advice and poor information out there is phenomenal and can end up in disaster. Things to consider are how much salt will you actually need. You know, a teaspoon or a tablespoon in an aquarium is going to have negligible effect. A couple of kilos in a pond is not going to have any effect. You need to consider the impact on things like plants, other sort of living organisms in ponds. So treating parasites in the pond, salt will also destroy rotifiers and other microorganisms that may provide a food source to small fish in the pond. Small fish and fry are certainly less tolerable to salt as well, so they need to be considered in your treatment sort of protocols. The key thing is take sound advice. Okay, hopefully there's a bit of enlightenment in this video, but it is complex. Sadly, as fish keepers, we do choose to treat our own fish based on advice from unqualified professionals, as opposed to taking them to a vet as you would with a dog or a cat. I'm not sure why we treat fish differently, but it just seems to be the done thing. So how do we get the salt out? We've done our treatment, we've got no need for it. It won't evaporate, it won't break down, it's in the water and that's where it's going to stay. So typically we conduct water changes. So if we have a 100 litre aquarium and we add in 500 grams of salt, we've got a concentration of 0.5%. If we do a 10% water change, we reduce that concentration to about 0.45%. We then top it back up to 100 litres and the salt's still in there. A further 10% water change won't reduce that by a significant amount. And in fact, if we look at somewhere in the region of 10 water changes, we've still got 0.17% salt in the system. Having done some rough calculations, as you can see, around 44 water changes at 10% or 10 litres at a time, topping it back up to 100, are required to get that down to what would be 0% if you went to 2 decimal places. So all things you need to consider if you were to apply a salt treatment. So hopefully we've got a bit of an insight into the use of salt in aquariums and ponds. A few things to remember. Don't be afraid of using salt if you really need to, but consider how much you'll actually need. So a 10,000 litre koi pond is going to need somewhere in the region of 150 kilos of salt to dose it at 1.5% if you were treating for a parasite, for example. A general tonic, as some people recommend, I'm not sure why, of 0.5% is still going to take somewhere in the region of 50 kilos of salt, and consider how long it's going to take to get that salt out of the system when you need to. With salt as well, it really limits the amount of other chemicals that you can use for treatments which may be more effective, so that's also a consideration. So, you know, a few tablespoons are not really going to do any sort of help or assist the fish in any way if they are ill or require some sort of help with nitrites, toxicity or osmoregulatory stress. Okay, so really, you know, do your research on this and whether it's the best option. With that said, don't be scared of it. Consult an expert is my key advice, and they'll be able to guide you on this. And then one thing I would say is, be wary of somebody trying to sell you a product. Okay, so if there's a sale there, they're trying to sell you something that may actually not be of any use whatsoever. I hear this time and time again. I mentioned it earlier. You know, a couple of kilos of pond tonic, tip it in, has no value, but there's a few quid extra in the till. And that's the thing I would advise. With guys that are in it for you guys, to make sure that you do the right thing, we'll give you some sound advice, including ourselves. If you did like the video, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get notifications when we upload videos, and of course follow us, because it really helps us add value to the videos, and it allows us to continue to make some more.